Should I explain?
Yeah, you can.
Because I need you, but okay. Maybe. All right, so let's do a thrusting warm-up. So we will do an exercise in sets of 3. The difference will be always the distance, okay? So first time, we'll start extremely close, extremely close. So in order to hit someone, you just need to extend your arms, okay? But we will be standing together just in a bind, so every time I get an opening, I just go straight with my arms into a thrust, okay? Then after 10 repetitions, we will move a bit further. So when I get an opening, I need to do a lunge thrust, okay? I need to do a lunge thrust, and then after 10 repetitions, I move even further. So when I get an opening, I make a advanced lunge thrust, okay? So one guy makes 30, then you switch, and then if you're ready, you wait, and we will move, okay? I will ask you, there's a lot of space, and there's a lot of us, but I think we can make it in people standing across each other like that. Okay, next to each other. So when we change partners, we just need to move to our right. All right. So one more time, just very quickly. Just go really close. Okay. So in order to hit, you really need just to extend your arms. Okay. Then a bit further. So in order to hit, I need to make a lunge, and then even further. So I need to make a step lunge.
10 times each time for each
10
set.
and 10, so
And then you switch. Okay.
Guy, then switch, and then if you're ready, just wait. All right? Let's do it. I'm moving. I go for the leg. Voids. Moving. I go for the arm. Voids. I make an opening. It thrusts. Nice. I make an opening, and hey, one more, and he just continues in the thrust. Okay, so if my partner gives the opening and voids, okay, so I'm going, and the partner goes one more step, so I just continue. Okay, so this is mainly about stability. Long point and attacking with the thrust is the safest way there is. Okay, of course, hitting each other with swords is safe at all. But if there was one attack which would be considered the safer, there is no safer attack. Okay, you will not find any cut, you will not find anything else. This is putting your sword in front of your body and guarding it in case anything happens. And if it goes south, there's still our sword to take care of business, all right? So one more time, if the opponent gives us opening, and I go into the thrust and they go, I just prolong it until the time when we reach it, and then just react by going with your body after the touch where you need to go, okay? Don't forget, the only important part is to keep your sword in front of you and not to shorten it whilst running, not to have it like too far, too heavy. I need to have the control over my sword and not let my sword have control over me.
Okay, and what footwork do you recommend in pursuit?
Footwork is always up to you.
Okay,
From
very
a
well.
certain point, you are all in charge of your footwork. It means that whatever suits you. Sometimes you need to make many steps, sometimes you need to make a good lunge. This is up to you. If you prefer doing, let's say, full running, do it. If you just prefer to do this, do it. I'm okay with all of this if it means that the measure and the distance management is good. Okay? Let's do it.
A small question.
Yeah.
When do you extend the sword during the, if you do a, let's say, advanced lunge, do you extend on the advance or on the lunge?
Good question, but very difficult one. Because
It depends, I guess, but
no, I would say, I mean, in sparring, of course, you have to take into consideration a lot of different things.
Yeah.
For instance, sometimes you want to prolong the attack. But as a general rule, as I enter the distance, okay, and speaking about the distance, if I'm out of measure, I don't care. Here I can do whatever because I'm out of measure. It's not gonna hit me, I'm not gonna hit it. But if I do here half a step, I'm in the measure. So if I'm in the measure, I should always have already my sword pointed out, because if I don't, then it is just a competition between who starts first. Because from this instance, this is why I asked right here. If you don't mind, I will just talk about it a little. In rapier, they have the distinction between two main distances. One is, well, it's similar to maybe Fiore. One is the misura larga. Okay, misura larga is a distance when, in order to hit, I need to make a step or a movement. Okay, so if I want to hit here, I'm not going to hit, so I need to make, for instance, a big step, okay? That's misura larga. Misura stretta is the distance, which is so short that we can hit our opponent with the movement of our body, leaning, etc., etc. Ideally, we want to be in misura stretta, but at the same time we don't want to be there, okay? Because if I can hit my opponent, unless I am this tall, unless my opponent is like this, usually we have the same reach, usually plus minus, okay? So I have to be extremely careful, and if I come to stretta, whoever moves first usually hits, or it's a double hit if we move, okay? So in this case, what I do, and I think I do it naturally, I don't need to think about it. Usually when I come into distance, here I need to go because I'm already in stretta. Here I can hit my opponent just with a small extension of my body, okay? So I would definitely recommend, if you see the distance, because it's very difficult to measure, like normally to say, because also our steps are different, but usually if I can hit with a step, it's larga, okay? If I move half a step in forward, and half a step is usually an advance, I'm already in stretta, okay? So if you know that you cannot hit your opponent, but if you do just one advance, you're in stretta, then you should be already extended. Okay? I don't know if it makes a lot of sense, but usually 2 advances equal 1 passing step. Okay? Usually 2 advances equal 1 passing step. That means that if I'm in the distance I'm not hitting, I just need half a step, okay, or a lunge in order to hit, and that means that if I do half a step, I'm already in stretta, or in distance where I can hit like this. So when I'm nearing my opponent, here I need to be already covered by my sword because it's difficult. Alright? I hope it does answer. Alright, let's do it. Okay, at one point I may attack the hands to which my partner reacts by voiding. I may attack the legs to which my partner reacts by voiding. And I open myself to which they react by thrusting. Okay? We will add one more, and it is that sometimes after the cut to the legs or after the swipe to the arms, you may continue your action with a thrust. Okay? So we're moving. I attack the legs and I attack with a thrust, to which my partner will react with a counter thrust. Okay? In the words of Fiores, cambiare de punta, in the words of the German masters, absetzen. Okay? Or ansetzen. Again, very depends on the time. And sometimes it doesn't matter at all. So, if my partner does it, so they attack my leg, okay? And then they go, just parry it, and reply with a thrust. Okay, we will do it as well. We will not do a one-tempo action. Of course, it can be done if you manage it. I mean, good for you. We can do it, but it's not necessary. Now we can do it as a two-tempo action. So parry, riposte with a thrust. Okay, so if my opponent goes for the leg, boom, I go, boom, and go parry, riposte. Okay, again. I know that some of you might be used to turning your hands with the thrust, but it's completely unnecessary. Okay, just parry, and as directly as you can, reply with the direct thrust into a ox. Okay, ox is a series of positions. It's not one position. It's 1,000 positions, or a infinite amount of positions. Okay, infinite meaning that as many as you find there are. Right? So this is one of the options. So again, the whole exercise, I'm leading. So advance, retreat, hands, leg, opening with a pass, or attack with the continuation against, and against that we do the scambiare or the absetzen. Okay? It's a nice set of movements that we have. There's nice rules, there's some chaos, so let's do it. Okay? We have 10 more minutes. Come on. Basically means turning. Okay, so every time I'm turning the sword, usually I'm doing something that we could call a Winde or a Wende in German. Okay, this was a thing that it appears in all other sources and Lichtenauer as well. So it's very difficult to say 100% that this is a thing that Lichtenauer came with, because probably it existed on its own in some way. But Lichtenauer created quite a nice system around it. Okay, the system has some flaws because it's very vague in some parts, but on the most part it works. Okay, and the main thing that basically the Lichtenauer lineage is trying to tell you is no matter what happens, if you're attacking or if you're defending yourself, just continue the attack. Just continue the attack, okay? Whatever you can, you're somewhere, just continue the attack the way you can, and if the way is open, just attack directly. If the way is shut, either go around, or if there's a possibility, use one of the winden in order to get inside, okay? There's nothing secretive about it. If you ever read other sources than Lichtenauer, for example, Leckuchner, has any one of you ever read Leckuchner?
Yes.
That's Messer. You know, it's mostly a plagiarized version of Lichtenauer, but the thing is that there are some very nice things in it, and he calls a lot of things winden that probably we wouldn't. Sometimes even if he does like cuts within an exchange, he also calls it winden, but that's not important. The exercise that we will do now is that we'll be really close again, okay? So I'm close as to I don't need to make an extra movement, and our swords will be crossed somewhere here, okay? I will turn my sword inside like this, or like this, and just make a thrust against my opponent, okay? Inside. So, the logic is as follows. Every time the way is open, okay, the way is open, I should go directly. But if there's this sword, this is a problem for me, because of course, if I'm doing a thrust, it might go away because it's parried. What winden does, it achieves a momentary advantage against the opponent's blade. Okay, this is the simple principle of leverage. I've got more power here, I've got less power there. In order to be successful with it, there is another principle that we call weak or strong. Again, for us people living in the 21st century, it's an obvious thing, because if someone is like too strong pushing against me, I mean, I'm not gonna like, okay, pull, of course I'm gonna go around or just yield to the pressure. But the thing is that there is, we cannot say exactly what's too much and what's not enough of pressure that we get, okay? So if my opponent is putting pressure at me, like it might feel like it's too much, but I can still, with good posture and good position, I can go in if I do a correct movement, okay? So, there is, however, one helping thing. This is the reason why I asked if any of you are practicing rapier. If you ever studied Salvador Fabriz, he has got some very nice things to say about thrusting in general, and one thing he says is when he describes the bind, okay, the bind of the swords, he said that bind of the swords doesn't necessarily have to be physical, okay? Physical means that if you are even like that, okay, I'm away, we are bound together in a bind, okay? Of course, I lack feeling, but he advises, if you can, he advises most of the time to do the thrust outside of the physical bind. Why do you think is that? What do you think is the reason?
Give information.
Information. Can't feel the sword. Exactly, that's the main reason, okay? Bind is of course wonderful and perfect, and we get all the information even with closed hands. I can approximately know the position, the relation of the swords. If you've got the experience, closed eyes, sorry. You can know the position and the relation of the opponent's sword. But the thing is, bind is not good, because if I'm bound, I know the information, but
So do we.
also see that, alright? Which is a big problem most of the times. And every time I leave the bind, even if I leave it, it's constant information which comes to him that I'm going somewhere away, and it's giving him information, okay? So even in German fencing, when we were in fencing with long swords, to be more specific, when we do certain attacks like thrust, I prefer not to do it like this unless I have a very serious reason to, okay? For instance, I expect my opponent to go outside because he's the kind of the guy that goes outside. We will have an exercise on that later, okay? But if I may, and if I want to really hit someone, I go just past this blade, and I attach him in the very last moment to achieve the momentary bind. Okay? And the reason why I'm explaining this is because it works the same with Winden. Okay? Every movement we do, every movement to a skilled opponent is sort of a tempo. Okay? Just in case, tempo is the time and distance that happens, or it's a time and distance that takes a fencing attack or a fencing movement to exist. Okay, so for instance, if I do this, it's a tempo. If I do this, it's a tempo. Okay, so it's an opportunity for the opponent. It's a time where one action has to take place. And even if we do stuff like Winden, it's still a tempo. Even though it's an offensive action, we're giving a lot of information. So unless I want to do something very specific, this is the kind of information I'm giving to him, which he will somehow use. Okay? He might. Not necessarily, but might. So that's why, even in this, I prefer to go just very close and not to push at all, or not to be bound physically, if I don't have to, just maybe a bit, and just grab it and go into a position. Okay? So if I'm to trap, I just prefer really go just boom here and keep him just going as much straight as I can into this position. Okay? We will do this exercise, just a very simple one. We're very close together, so I can do them. First, I will go 10 times straight into the Winden thrust. Okay? I go straight into the Winden thrust. Then, the next 10 times, my partner will start putting some pressure on me. Okay, so if I do it wrongly, for instance, if I first move like here, I will not hit. I need to, if he puts pressure, I need to achieve dominance in the bind and first grab it before making the thrust. Okay? In the last part, and this is where the genius of the Lichtenauer Winden comes, my opponent will put a lot of pressure on me. So now I cannot simply enter with the thrust, and it makes almost no logic to do it like this. So instead, I will make a cut towards the opponent's head. Okay, and this is the great genius, which we will talk about a bit later. All right. So one more time, we're close. First no pressure. So I just go, make you. I just go, make you. Or if you prefer to, I mean, I do not prefer to do the whole turn, but if you prefer to do it, I mean, just do it. Then, slight pressure, so I have to do the correct movement in order to attach it, okay? And then the last will be lots of pressure, and if you don't do it, just hit your opponent with a cut with a short edge towards their head. Alright? That's right, guys. Why Winden is just so good, or it's like a good way of working with and attacking the opponent is like, normally I do attack, 2, 3, okay? Instead of this, I do attack, 2, 3. So I can fit 3 attacks into 3 movements, except instead of 2 normal attacks, okay? So it always gives you an extra time for attack, and the very way how we do it with the turning of the wrists and the thing that we can employ a thrust and a cut makes it universal in all occasions, because no matter what happens is that if we turn our hands and even if we are staying somewhere in the hanging position, I'm safe. There is no safer position if we are in the middle distance than being here. Okay? Being here would be stupid and suicidal and very quick, or short for me, quick for him. Alright? So I want to come here, and here, every time you go away, you're giving tempo to the opponent. Even though, let's say, this cut is like super short, it's still a tempo that he can use. So that's why it's better, or I prefer all the time to work with the initiative in such a way that I strengthen, I make pressure, opponent starts to parry, I still make pressure, still make pressure, still make pressure. So mentally, he's always a step behind, in a way, because he has to deal with every single movement of mine being an attack. Okay? This is perhaps at least for me, this is like the little difference there is in the German way of thinking. It's constant attacking and making your every single move you do an attack. Okay? So instead of, I don't know, doing Indiana Jones stuff, Okay, which is okay. Sometimes you need it. If you have a very good opponent, you have to fool him with stupid things because if he's good, then you know it's usually a question of making a mistake and how to make mistakes. But most of the times, it's just better to boom, come, boom, and make so many attacks that my opponent is like, oh, and everyone who reacts will be always necessarily slower than the one who attacks. Well, always, but let's say in the majority of cases, if I have to react, I have to wait for what's happening, and sometimes my brain doesn't compute well, so the probability that I will make a mistake is much higher.
Attack is best defense. The attack is the best defense.
The attack is the best defense, right? So it's not like the in our school didn't think about parries, but they had a different mindset. Like go with a flurry of attacks and attack as much as you can with every movement, so the opponent doesn't have time to do these attacks. Okay? It doesn't say that ignore him like Matthew was attacking me. I'm like, okay, no, this is not fencing. They don't want to do it. They want to do it like, I don't just go and do your thing, bing, 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 whatever it is. All right? Now, we will go a similar exercise with one exception. We will be bound somewhere in this, and my opponent will give either a higher or a lower bind, okay? If they give me a lower, I will go and make a lower winden. So I'm going, this is a lower winden, okay? This is a flug winden. Or if they go a bit above, I will go and do a higher winden, which is an ox winden, okay? The flug winden, it doesn't have to be like this, okay? It doesn't mean this is flug as well, this is flug as well, and here somewhere starts something we call ox, okay? All right? So, exercise, I'm the coach, so we assume position, I lift the swords, we go with a higher winden, okay? I'm the coach, I go slower, we go with a lower winden, okay? So try the different windens and take your time. There is no reason to rush. Okay? Every time you make a movement, your opponent will react. So wait for your time, so you don't have to repeat it. So you're always successful. Okay? So Matu, lift the sword. Okay? I know that I want to go with it. Matu goes slower. Okay? I go into lower with it. Okay? Take your time and rather be successful with every attack, every thrust, than not to be. All right? Changing heights and reacting according to where the height is. Come on. There's less action and it's faster. Okay? Normally this is boom, turning, okay? But this is like boom. Alright? So let's head into the exercise right now and combine all four. So now I have 4 cuts, which are in the end, these are just Zwerchhaus flying all over the place. But sometimes you don't have to go around, just sometimes you just stay inside, and as the Zwerchhaus is going, boom, 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 I'm just doing those cuts. So I'm doing more attacks in a shorter amount of time. Okay, or at least I perceive those little windens like a half tempo. For me, it's not like a full tempo. Okay, so 2 windens consist of like a full tempo. So if I do something like this, which is actually I made 2 attacks. For me personally, it's just 1 tempo. Right? So play with it a little more. Boom, 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 whatever you want. Okay. It's
Boom, boom,
so
boom.
don't forget, you can do it in 2 ways. Boom. Boom, or sometimes, I don't know, in some exercises, we make even go like this. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's still the same shit. Right? Let's do it. I go with a cut, but if I'm like super close, now I can do the same thing, just going against opponent's arms or hands or whatever there is, because the last part of winden is making slices. Okay, there are many ways. How to do slices, how to do slicing against head, whatever, etc. But I prefer to do them always against hands because in our environment, when we're wearing good gloves and protection, it doesn't do a lot. Okay, the effect is not so huge. So in order to make the most of it, we have to slightly tune or keep up the conditions. Okay, in this case. Sometimes it happens that I want to attack, boom, but suddenly I end with a bad attack somewhere. Here I cannot, or it's very illogical to do the winden. Not illogical, but not very appropriate is the better word. And most probably it's his initiative. Okay, I push, it's his initiative, and this is exactly the time where you are doing the turn. When you are doing the turn, and if opponent goes, we need to continue with the winden, where I go from a upper position into a lower position. In this case, I'm going from sort of a ox position to sort of a flug position. Okay, because flug and ox is the name of the quarters, which are, it doesn't matter how we hold the sword. Alright? So, the exercise that we will do now, we will simulate a failed attack, or we will simulate a close-up. Okay, we will forget that there are some errors on the way and that we can always start it with a plus. Okay, so I will make my opponent go on the other side, and in the same movement, we must use a lot of our body force in order to push the hands on the side. Immediately, this is never the last attack. Immediately, we go into the plurian, and then whatever is needed. All right. So one more time. I'm here. I go here and here, here. All right. This needs to be done in one movement. Okay. If you do any swing into the action, if you do any preparation, you will fail. You will fail because time is extremely crucial in here. If I get here, stop, and if the opponent goes and I do this and this, we will have, well, maybe a double hit. Okay, but he will be stronger because it's his tempo. So in order to prevent this, I need to go boom, boom, immediately with his arms, follow up the movement. Okay, it's like a magnet. I'm going like a magnet. It's the same, like my feet is looking for, it fails, and I'm looking for, okay, sorry. So just continue the movement forward, continue the pressure. Do not yield, but instead always have your sword somewhere towards the enemy and push them, okay? We'll make it from the other side as well because it's basically the same. So if I'm pushing here, if I miss, the opponent is going here, I need to push somewhere on their hands, push them down, boom, boom, all right? One more time. Pushing, they go, and push, boom, boom, or pushing, okay, pushing, boom, boom, boom. Okay, just remember, this is just a transitional attack. It's not the last attack. It's blocking my opponent for a little while, gaining initiative again, and then retaliating. Okay? It might sometimes happen that you do not catch the good moment, or the opponent is taller or stronger. So if you come here and he's here, you will never push him, okay? Because there's not enough strength for me. That's why you have to always be the first one. Sorry. I hate doing this. And then going. You really have to be pushy and do it with a strong part of your play. Okay? No questions? Let's try it. I will come to you. There's one like a transitional reaction. It's called mutiren, or a transfer. Okay? Mutiren is like a flanconade or like an action when I'm exchanging a higher opening for a lower one. There are multiple ways how to do it. But mutiren is done mainly when, for instance, both of us are somehow winding, trying to get to each other, okay? And I can get him, this is really good, and he keeps on sticking the point in front of me somewhere, right? Even this is good for mutiren. So I know that if I will go here, I will probably get buried. In this case, I slightly push his sword on the side, I slightly push it and find a different opening. And now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go to a lower opening. You can go into any opening that you open up with the movement. Okay? So sometimes if we are like this, and if I'm going with mutiren, I will stay like this. It's completely okay because I created an opening. Okay? Sometimes it happens that I will go here, it's completely okay, it happens, okay? Try to think about this technique like it's a sinking missile, all right, or like a homing missile. Going with my tip and trying to find a way where I can trust it. But before that, all of that, I still have to think about. If the way is open directly, I have to take it. This is the quickest way how to get to my opponent. If the way is shut, I can go around. Okay? If the way is shut, I cannot go around, I can take and pull out. In German, how it's called in English. If you go around. Detour, exactly. So I have to take this short detour, okay? But again, this is a very much a thing that you have to feel within that exchange. Now in the exercise, just for the sake of it, just to find the action, let's make an agreement that we'll practice it with our hands really high. So head is covered, there is no way to go, and the way is like super long to go there, and I will endanger myself. So that's why I will turn the sword and try to find a different opening either below or higher, or I mean if you after the pushing can find the opening there, you just go there because it's closer, okay? Doing historical techniques doesn't mean that you have to end all the times like that, okay? Like you read in Lichtenauer. Every time someone lifts their hands, just go and hit them behind their hands on the head. But sometimes you hit them on the hands and it's okay. Alright? And also with this one. I'm just trying to find a different opening. If a different opening opens up, like don't have to go down, I just go where it is. Alright? So, regarding the technique itself, I guess that most of you know it, but just to be sure, I just turn my sword slightly, I just sink my point and go here. Now, again, multiple ways how to do it. Sometimes, if the hands stay high, for instance in the Binden, if the hands stand high, of course, you can do it like this. This is like the idealized version that we have, okay? But sometimes you start pushing and your opponent goes down with you and you end up like this. This is rare. I mean, maybe 5% of all the outcomes, but it happens, okay? Sometimes the opponent stays high and you just do this. It's okay. Sometimes the opponent stays high and you can do it even with a long edge. I was standing on the long edge, okay? I wasn't having my fingers like this. We just go and overshoot the point. All of that is valid. About the technique, there is my will to hit the target any way possible by getting my point somewhere, okay? So like with the duplieren, where we were just thinking like, in the end it's there and sometimes I stay inside. With this, it's just a thrust, which is finding the optimal way to go. Okay? One more time. Higher position, I go around, I make a thrust. Okay? Higher position, I go around, I find the thrust where I can, depending on your will and talent. Okay? Let's do it. A few more minutes. Come on. You can do it. Variation. On a slice, what happens now? Sometimes if you come too close and you want to sort of hit with the pommel, but it's difficult to come close because the opponent is really reacting, etc. So what I do is I stick the pommel inside, I grab my sword like this, and I pull down. Okay? Sorry. This is very strong. This is very strong because I am enlarging the leverage by grabbing the blade by doing this. Okay? So it's like sort of a movement where we are pulling our opponent with us, okay? This movement isn't supposed to, it isn't really supposed like to do any damage here, okay? You don't do this, but rather pull him down with you so you can grab him, whatever, pull him down on the ground, pull him out of balance, whatever you need, okay? Both of things. So let's try it out one more time. So the situation is like, we come close and we're high here. I will put the pommel inside, I will just grab it, and I will just pull it with me, okay? Sometimes if they resist, or if they are taller, or way taller, anything, then you really do small steps, okay? Do not dance with your legs, because you will not have enough balance to pull it out, but rather try to be stable and pull your opponent using, again, the power of your upper body to do this, okay? So, what?
happens if your opponent drops your hands? If your opponent drops your hands of the opponent.
Those hands like
Yeah.
goes off, then it's happy time. It might of course happen. It might of course happen that I come here, my opponent drops it. Because it's happy time. I'm still the one who has the advantage. Okay? Because if he opens himself up here, I must immediately use it for other stuff that is accessible. Right? The thing about grappling is I don't like grappling much. Okay? And in fencing. And the reason why I don't like grappling much, there is just one reason. I mean, I like grappling as a whole, but in fencing, when we have swords, we are more or less equal. When it gets into grappling, it's usually the stronger person, the taller person, or the faster person gets a hold really quickly. Okay, you may have the best technique, but when somebody is really strong and stands still, they will not do anything, and they will just do it. Okay, so the chances become different, and you have to have a lot of skill, much more skill to overcome someone who is strong than with the sword. Because with the sword, I just need to do the proper moment, even if he was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I could do it. Okay, because swords change conditions. But when grappling, we come close, it's a lot of risk. So this is why I prefer to mitigate this kind of risk by ideally not getting into the situation. Of course, sometimes it happens, but I mean, if I can do it, I'm stronger with the sword. So when I hold the sword, I'm stronger. When I leave the sword and I start going to grappling, it's a lot of risk. My workout, not necessary. Alright? So let's try this one because it's really, it's a lot of fun. We'll see. So one more time, three more throws, and if there are, I go inside, I just grab it, and I pull the guy with me. Alright? Let's do it. I still prefer to keep my sword, and if we are here, this is a rather difficult situation every time, okay? Because here, I cannot just go away. Because if I go away, if I go, I will become a target because I have broken the distance, okay? Of course, I can do the same, but still the risk is very high. I cannot just lose my sword. I can't just lose my sword, but I wouldn't rather because then I still might have a lot of strength in here. So, what I prefer to do is I prefer to stick here. There's not a lot of room for regen because we're extremely close. So in this case, I prefer to hold my hands like this and then just to attack the lower opening, the higher opening, and then go with a third cut. Okay? So what we will do now is, it's a very good thing to learn, to cut just without changing your position. Okay? So here it's very difficult for him to see, in a way also because of a lot of the gear in front of our eyes. If I'm more or less not moving and doing just this, it's very difficult to predict and parry. It's almost unparable. And even if he was trying to go with the sword, I will just open him up for another continuation. Okay? So when doing it, try to think about fixating your hands and just turning your body like this, then continuing and then doing this. Okay? Of course, the opponent is not stationary, they will move. So you just adapt to what they do and you choose the best subsequent attack. Okay? I also pretty much like to do another tricky thing, another tricky subsequent attack. After doing this, then if you see that the opponent stays here and it's difficult to go, you just do attack from the same side but in the upper opening. So I'm doing something like boom. Okay, so it's like boom, boom, boom. That's like the sequence, okay? You don't have to be super fast, you just have to open them with an attack that they do not expect, okay? Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, and nobody expects the attack from the same side twice, or rarely, okay? There is by the way, there is a plethora of attacks in Mixenauer when he attacks, then he goes and they attack from the same side, because it's always like, oh, I didn't expect that. Alright, so one more time. We somehow become close, I don't move. I'm very sorry. I don't move here, I just turn, boom, and I go, okay? Most of it is done just by turning my body like this. Stay, turning, boom, or coming here, doing this, and this, if you needed to, okay? Just this. Alright? Don't employ a lot of force, just generate it with the morning routine. Alright? It really, really helps. Let's go, let's do it.